Now this right here is the Boeing 737-900, and some bad mouths will say that it's kind of poorly designed. See, this is the entire lineup of the 737s. Obviously, the Boeing started off with the 100 as its original design. In comparison to the modern 737s, this plane looks short and stubby, which works well with the way that it's very low to the ground. The thing is, over the years, of course, Boeing has stretched the 737 all the way up until the 900, which is a whole 13 meters longer than the 737-100. The 737-100 is truly almost half the length of the 900. But there's one problem. While the length has almost doubled, the height has not changed much at all. The 737 still, in its long variant, is quite low to the ground, which is a problem, for example, also for the engines. As you can see, they're not even a circle, round shape. They're like, shapes like squared off right here towards the ground, just to make sure that it won't strike the ground. As you can see, they are quite low hanging, but there's also another problem that comes with this airplane being very low to the ground as well, and that is hitting the tail on a runway. And that's something that happens a lot with the 737-900, and it can happen now as well. We can maybe try an extreme takeoff scenario where we take off with the flaps set to 1 degree, and for takeoff, the general rule of thumb is the lower the flap setting, the higher the angle. So this will be a bit of a bad takeoff. You'll find out when you fly this plane, the 737-900, it's insanely easy to just tail strike. Yep. Sorry. So it just keeps going. It just keeps going. And, at some point we take off. Barely. Now, that's pretty insane. And this doesn't only happen in the flight sim, of course. You can find countless videos online of just the 737-900 doing a tail strike. Oh yeah, that is quite... Oh, there we go. That didn't quite work out. Here's another hood classic of the long boy, the 737-900, as you can see, and boom. That is a bit of a tail strike. This is not too high quality, but we can see, yep. That's at least close to a tail strike as well. In fact, I've done a little bit of research and I looked up how many tail strikes the 737-800 overall had. Obviously, the 737-800 is much more common to see, whereas how many 737-9 tail strikes were there. And for the 737-800, I found 84 tail strikes, and for the 737-900, I found 18. That sounds like contradictory, but the fact is that almost 5,000 737-800s were delivered, whereas only 557 of the 900 were delivered. So the statistic is that the 737-900 has nearly twice the tail strike probability of the 800. Now, which just physically makes sense. In fact, Boeing thought of this. There's a bit of magic there. When we put this airplane into landing configuration, which we're doing right now, watch this thing. Yes. This thing comes out. This is the tail skid. And this tail skid is extremely handy for making sure that a tail strike can happen without the extreme damage that can be caused to the fuselage. I mean, look at the damage that a normal 737 has from a proper tail scrape right here. That is a lot of damage. Whereas on the 900, the damage is a bit lower most of the time. Here we can see the scratch mark of the tail skid, though of course there's some scratch marks in the lower half fuselage because this was a bit of a narrower tail strike. But honestly, this is almost like a pretty alright solution from Boeing there. Because I mean, Boeing really isn't the only airliner manufacturer that made planes that are too long. I mean, we talked about the A321, which has the same problem. Stretch too long, and that can cause this, and this, and this, and this. The A321 really has a lot of tail strike problems as well. Interestingly enough, it's not at all fitted with some sort of tail skid. At least I couldn't find any information about that. I guess Airbus's way of warning the pilots that that a tail strike could happen is by putting a sticker here, A321 tail strike caution, which is why on most landings, A321 pilots are not advised to use full flaps, because using full flaps on landing does increase your angle, and you end up doing this. Let's see if I can make a normal takeoff at all, and we'll stick our hands into the aviation trick book right here. Here is a reference chart of the tailstrike geometry. For the 737-900, the tailstrike pitch attitude is 10 degrees, which, by the way, as you can see, here's a comparison to the older models. It used to be 13 degrees, which is a lot higher. And this is a big problem, this 10 degrees, because on flaps 1, the liftoff attitude is 8 degrees. You have so little ground clearance. You've got 33 centimeters of ground clearance. Absolutely insane. We're gonna use flaps 1.5 right now, which does help a little bit of reducing our tail strike ability. So let's go full power, take off now, get some flaps nicely out. Perfect. Okay, we're gonna gain some nice speed and then slowly get that nose lift. Oh, that's close. Jesus Christ, it's genuinely impossible to take off a plane without tail strikes. It's actually hilarious. I wonder about landings as well. We barely did. I'm not trying to do a tail strike right here. I'm trying to not do one. Anyway, let's do a landing as well. As you can see, the tail skid's already out. And something you're really not supposed to do is use full flaps, but we're gonna do that anyway. 40 knots, degrees, which, as you can see, greatly induces our landing angle, our flare angle. Great. Furthermore, in real life, it's important that we don't flare as much. So basically, we're advised to make harder landings. Yeah, going around at low altitude is also a bit of a problem, I guess. So let's take a look.
Too low terrain.
Okay, here is a nice flare. Hey, there we go. We've actually done it. Hold on. Yeah! Nope. Okay, yeah, I'm just fooling around now. Oh, that was definitely quite a hard landing. Hey, but still, we can make sparks move in a large quantity. How are we still able to wheelie? That's crazy. Let's go ahead and just quickly stop. Like that, which somehow still worked, ladies and gentlemen. So everybody be careful when flying the 737-900. Use high flaps on takeoff and use low flaps on landings, or you just don't care at all, because Boeing kind of almost has a safety precaution, even though this thing always needs to be replaced after a bad landing, I would suggest. So your insurance costs won't be that nice. I would love to find out how much that costs per item, but I need to log in. I can't just buy a spare part, sadly. Something else to really need to make sure to not do with the 737-900 is load it poorly, because it tends to literally tip a lot when too much weight is in the back. Like that just happens. So everybody, thank you guys so much for watching this long video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as always. Good night. And a special thanks goes out to my members, my supporters: Guns Killer, R27, James Duram, That Dude, Anime Gods of Gaming, Derek, Insider Plane, Nishijutsu Fanner, Professional Jamal, Ryland Williams, and New the York. You've got beautiful names.